Okay, so today we're diving into something really interesting happening over in Burnaby, BC. It's this super fast reversal on housing policy. We've got the details here, provincial mandates, this pretty intense resident reaction, and then the city just slamming the brakes. For you listening, it's a fascinating snapshot of density policy hitting, well, neighborhood reality.
Exactly. And the mission here is really to unpack why it happens so fast. It's not just about needing more homes, it's about what those homes look like, their scale next to existing houses. How do you get from a new policy to people calling new builds ugly monstrosities almost overnight? That's what we need to figure out.
Right. And it all kicked off pretty recently. Burnaby, it's a decent-sized city, maybe 250,000 people.
Yeah, about that.
So back in July 2024, they brought in rules for multiplexes, basically following a provincial order, allowing 4 to 6 homes where one single-family house used to be.
But the first wave of building, that was the flashpoint. The initial permissions allowed builders to go up to 4 stories. And some of these places were huge, like individual units clocking in at 2,600 square feet.
4 stories. On a standard lot.
Yeah. Imagine that next to, say, a small post-war bungalow. The contrast was stark.
You can see why people might react. We saw comments from residents. Tim O'Mara called the construction just extraordinary.
Right. Extraordinary in maybe not the best way.
And then Kathy Corrigan, a former MLA, she didn't mince words, said the city basically gave developers the keys and ended up with these ugly monstrosities.
Ugly monstrosities. I mean, that phrase really caught on, didn't it? And it clearly had an impact.
It sure did, because the council acted fast.
Immediately. They voted to pull back significantly. Future multiplexes capped at 3 stories now.
Okay, 3 stories, that's a change.
And the size, the floor area got slashed, somewhere between 33 and 60% reduction, depending on the specifics. Plus, they upped the requirements for on-site parking. Quite a bit, actually.
Wait, hold on. Up to a 60% cut in floor space. That feels like more than just tweaking the rules. That sounds like a full retreat.
Yeah.
Did they just completely misjudge the initial reaction?
It certainly looks that way. Mayor Mike Hurley basically admitted they needed to adjust. He framed it as, the city listening.
Okay.
He said residents weren't against change itself, but they were opposed to the extreme. He even mentioned his own preference was for smaller units, maybe 1,400 to 1,900 square feet. So yeah, those initial 2,600 square foot giants, probably seen as a mistake in hindsight.
So the city backs down.
Mm-hmm.
How did developers take that? I mean, shrinking projects by up to 60% and adding parking spots, that hits the bottom line, right?
Oh, for sure. We looked at the developer perspective, too. Bryn Davidson, one voice from that side, basically called the pushback predictable.
Predictable.
Yeah, he framed it as the usual shock of transition, residents feeling a sense of loss when their neighborhood changes visually. But he also seemed to accept that some course correction was fair.
As long as it wasn't a total rollback, I guess.
Exactly. He said as long as it's not a wholesale rewinding of the policy. And this is interesting because apparently Vancouver was watching Burnaby's first, more permissive rules, maybe thinking of copying them.
Okay, so the city corrects course, developers kind of accept it. But what about the province? Didn't they mandate this density in the first place?
That's the big question hanging over all this.
Mayor Hurley himself warned that if Burnaby restricts things too much, the BC Ministry of Housing might just step in. The province needs these multiplexes built, partly because traditional houses are just unaffordable for so many.
And the province isn't just talking. They recently brought in actual legislation. It gives the ministry the power to override local bylaws if they think those bylaws are unduly limiting multiplex construction.
Override them.
Yep. Or if they impose what the province deems excessive parking requirements. So the province has tools now to push back against local restrictions.
Wow. Okay, so Burnaby's story is like a speed run of this whole conflict, isn't it? You see the provincial push for density, the immediate local backlash over aesthetics and scale, and then the city trying to find a middle ground.
Well, knowing the province could potentially overrule them anyway, it really highlights that tension between wanting to preserve neighborhood character, or at least manage the change, and the urgent need for more housing supply.
So wrapping this up, Burnaby really showed how fast local sentiment, especially around visual change and things like parking, can force a major policy shift, even when that policy comes from higher up.
It did. Which leads to a really crucial question for you, the listener, to think about. You've got the province with new powers to override local limits, specifically mentioning things like parking rules. And you've got strong local demand, like we saw in Burnaby, for more parking and less scale. So, in this tug of war between local preferences and the provincial drive for housing supply, who do you think ultimately comes out on top? Where does the balance finally settle?